Glad you're here. So good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield. My name is Ellen Saul, and I'm here with my partner, John Bessie. We were delighted to discover UUFN during COVID, and we've been members for just over 2 years now. UUFN is an inclusive community that nurtures spiritual and intellectual growth and fosters ethical and social responsibility. If you are a visitor, either here on site or online, we're glad you're with us, and we invite you to stay after the service to get acquainted. We welcome your questions and look forward to getting to know you. Later in the service today, we'll take our Share the Plate offering as a way to care for the wider world. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Community Action Center, CAC. CAC is a local community organization serving individuals and families throughout Rice County. Their mission is to promote a healthy, caring, and just community for all. They've requested our financial support in November so they can help families in the area throughout the upcoming holidays. During the offering later, you can put cash or a check in the basket or donate online from our website, uunorthfield.org. If your check is for your pledge, please simply write pledge on the memo line, and there will also be instructions on the screen during the offertory time. I'd like to call your attention to the announcements in your order of service and weekly email. You'll find more information about an introduction to UU history and theology class facilitated by Reverend Sara, a welcome team training Sunday the 12th and Wednesday the 15th that's open to all. We'd love to have your help in welcoming people to our services, and a conversation after the service today hosted by the Green Team. Please join us next Sunday for exploring the Good Samaritan parable through the lens of love, truth, and beauty, presented by Paul Krause, and Barbara Krause will be worship associate and contributor. The service will also include poetry and dance provided by members of the congregation. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield.
Thank you, Will. Good morning, all. I am the Reverend Sara Smalley, she, her pronouns, and I serve this congregation as its minister. Today, we launch November's worship theme of the gift of generosity with these words by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. The story goes, that once upon a time there was a wise woman traveling all through the mountains. One day she found a precious stone in a stream. She was so happy and grateful it could change her life. The next day she met a man traveling just like her through the mountains. He was hungry and she was happy to share her food. But as she opened her bag, the man saw the stone, and he knew with this stone he would be able to eat all his favorite foods. His mouth watered, imagining all the incredible flavors, all the ways his life would be filled with so much goodness. Instead of food, he asked, "Can I have that stone?" The woman looked at him. Of course. And just like that, it was his. The man was so happy. He ran quickly away, afraid she would change her mind. A few days later, however, the man appeared again, carrying the stone in his hands. "Take it back," he said. "Instead, I hope you can give me something even more precious than this precious stone. I hope you can give me whatever it is within you that made it so easy for you when I asked to just give it away." In this place, for this hour, we are all trying to learn how it is when we are asked to trust, to love, to give of ourselves, to share our blessings, that we can say an easy and a great yes. And also, we are here to remember we all carry with us a precious stone that is this great blessing, this gift that is just ours, this gift that we long to offer the world, that in our giving will bless us all the more. Come, let us worship together.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, a beacon of hope that lights the path of love and justice. Each Sunday when we gather, we bring this symbol to life together. Please join me in speaking the words for the lighting of the chalice. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit. When I signed up to help with this service, I knew I wanted to learn some things about generosity, the theme for November. I checked out some definitions: giving more than is necessary or expected. Generous giving is larger and more plentiful. The word generous is connected to the concept of a noble birth, people who are courageous, magnanimous, not mean. So noble birth is about who we are, not what family we're born to or what situation we're born to. Some synonyms include lavish, open-handed, kindly, kind-hearted, plentiful, and ample. It occurred to me that the feeling of generous included giving without an expectation of return. Generous giving is a free gift. It's not a should. It's not wrapped in resentment. I began thinking about what generosity might look like in my life. The first things that came to mind for me were gifts of time or money to somebody who needed them. And what if my body could show generosity? That might include for me setting aside into the hands of the universe what was bothering me and connecting with others from a place of peace and presence. I could offer a hug or a touch. I would want to notice what my face was doing. What emotions am I sending out to the folks I'm with? What would it be like if I chose a smile and soft eyes filled with delight when I saw someone? I bet they would like it better than me arriving draped in my frustration over the careless driver I had to deal with on my way to church or getting stuck behind a train. Could I be generous in my thinking, in my conclusions? Could I choose acceptance instead of judgments? Could I offer ideas and be genuinely supportive and peaceful if the person didn't want them? I have an idea if you're interested. No is as good as an answer as yes. Thanks for being clear with me. Good job. Could I choose to look for the best possible interpretation of another person's actions? For example, I'm guessing you were wanting to help me when you put the dishes in the washer and I was still using them. Thanks for your help. I don't know if that ever happens at your house. What would generosity of spirit look like? I have an image in my head of holding a big container for folks, big enough for all our differences, with plenty of interest and curiosity to connect us. Brene Brown talks about the importance of vulnerability. What if we experimented with extending generosity to each of the parts of ourselves? Would that help us feel safe enough on the inside to be vulnerable on the outside with each other? Reaching out with generosity can feel really good. There's research that shows that when we are generous, we create good feelings in ourselves and in the feelings of the folks we reach out to. Then we're all motivated to continue to be generous the next time around. What if we remembered that we give a gift when we accept the generosity or the help of someone else? We might discover a lot of gifts going around. I had the thought last week that when I do my journaling from one hand to the other, I could ask for words for UUFN and all of us here. So on Monday, I asked my inside parts and my ancestors if they had anything to say to me and to our fellowship about generosity, this theme for November. Here's what came back. We are always here, sending you everything you need. All you need is here, filling you up so you can share it on with others. You are completely connected to all the resources of the universe. So smile and let it all in, from us, from the earth, and from all creatures.
Thank you, Ellen. That was gorgeous. Before we move into our Candles of Community time, I wanted to give a little bit more information about Liz Brecky's memorial service next Saturday, November 11th. We'll gather here at 10 a.m. and the service will also be live streamed on Zoom on our regular Sunday morning link. As part of that service, we will have a collage of voices time. You're invited to write a short tribute or memory of Liz, just one paragraph or so, that I will read out loud during the memorial service. There's an email that went out about that this morning, but I wanted to make sure you were aware of it. Please send those to me by Wednesday if you want a short tribute to Liz included in that service. And now, will you take a breath with me? It is our practice in this community to pause every week to get in touch with the truths of our lives, our joys and sorrows, hopes and fears. What is true for you this week? What is lifting you up? What is causing you to struggle? Take a few breaths and connect with what your heart is calling you to pay attention to in this sacred moment. In the presence of a love that holds us all, we use our chalice flame to light our candles of community. We light our first candle as a blessing for the wider world. Our hearts are with both Israelis and Palestinians. Today, this candle is for those who died in a strike on a refugee camp in Gaza overnight. For the children, the parents, the siblings, the loved ones. Our hearts break. We know too that the details of our daily lives are sacred and important. We now light a candle for all the simple joys that are sustaining us. And we light another candle in honor of the sorrows and hardships we may be carrying. With warmth to celebrate our joys, and with gentleness to soothe our aching hearts. Listen to your own heart, the prayers it whispers, the truth it speaks, in the silence we now share. Amen, and blessed be.
Our first reading is Cottonwood Trees from Lynn Unger. The cottonwoods are flinging themselves outwards, filling the air with spiraling flurries. covering lawns with deepening drifts. You could call this generosity. Like any being, they let loose what they have in order to survive, in order that their lives might continue in a new year's growth. The more seeds they send out on their lofted journeys, the greater chance for their kind to flourish. There's no hesitation. No one asks how much they will give. Without words, they know so clearly that everything depends on what we call giving, that which the world knows as creation. And this from Parker Palmer. In the human world, abundance does not happen automatically. It is created when we have the sense to choose community, to come together, to celebrate and share our common store. Whether the scarce resource is money or love or power, the true law of life is that we generate more of whatever seems scarce by trusting its supply and passing it around. Authentic abundance is not found in secured stockpiles of food or cash or influence or affection, but in belonging to community, where we can give these goods to others who need them and receive them from others when we are in need. Community doesn't just create abundance. Community is abundance. If we could learn that equation from the world of nature, the human world might be transformed. We will now gratefully give and receive our offering for Community Action Center and the work they do in Rice County. This is one way we make our care for the world tangible. Will the ushers please come forward to receive our offering?
Has there ever been a time when you wanted to give up? This is the question the former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, starts with in her reflection, The Power of We. These are her words. Has there ever been a time when you wanted to give up? I was asked this question on a recent podcast. Have you ever wanted to give up in activism or in ministry? My answer was, of course, yes. There have been times when my heart has been so broken by disappointment, or times when the work of building beloved community, both inside and outside the walls of our congregations, has felt insurmountable. In these times, I cannot deny wanting to throw in the towel. One of those moments was after the deportation of a beloved community member in Phoenix. It happened at a time after there had been so much positive momentum, so many cases that had been won, it made me question if our efforts really could make a difference. But what I did next is what made this moment of doubt temporary. What I did is reach out to a colleague and friend, someone who is also deeply involved in the movement. She offered me her witness. She listened to my grief, my anger, my fear. And finally, she prayed for me. It wasn't a prayer for answers. It was a prayer for compassion and healing for my own heart and spirit. The next day, I got up and went back to work. Remembering this story, I realized that what kept me going is the power of we. In a moment of tremendous doubt, reaching out to someone else reminded me I am not alone. Reverend Frederick Gray concludes with this. It's a lesson I learn again and again. We don't create any real impact alone. Community gives us strength. Love gives us courage. Remembering we are not alone, remembering the people, the family, the community, the ancestors we belong to, gives us resiliency and power to keep on loving, keep on acting, keep on working for the values and commitments we hold dear. Amen. Reverend Frederick Gray. The current 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, which are listed in the hymnal, on books in the back of the sanctuary, they're quoted exclusively or extensively by Unitarian Universalists. You can learn more about them in my UU History and Theology class. The 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism start with the inherent worth and dignity of every person and end with the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Reverend Frederick Gray's reflection makes me wonder how things might be different if those were reversed. What if we started with we? What if we started with the reality that we are all connected, each to each other, to the earth, to Israelis and to Palestinians, to polar bears and bumblebees? What if the web weren't the end point, but the beginning? What if we knew we belonged as the first and foremost, the most important spiritual truth? What if our individuality were celebrated because we knew we are each a unique strand in the web, and thus our presence mattered? As Quaker writer Parker Palmer says, "Your life never was the solo turn it seemed to be. It was always part of the great weave of nature and humanity, an immensity we come to know only as we follow our own small threads to the place where they merge with the boundless whole. Each of our threads runs its course, then joins in life together, this magnificent tapestry, this masterpiece in which we live forever." This magnificent tapestry, this abundant community, this interwoven life. For decades now, Unitarian Universalist writers, theologians, and leaders have been calling for a shift away from individualism and towards covenant. Let me be very clear, not away from individuality. This religion will never value conformity, but away from the kind of rugged individualism that prioritizes self-reliance over connection. Again, the words of Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. Individuality celebrates the very real differences between people without denying our fundamental interdependence, while individualism understands a person as a separate, dependent on no one. Individuality recognizes that each of us, varied as we are, exist within a context of mutuality, shared fate, and collective responsibility. The individualism of our religious and cultural heritage perhaps served us for a while, but as UU minister and author Fred Muir argued over a decade ago, and feminist UUs were arguing long before, to build beloved community, Unitarian Universalism needs a new narrative. And we may soon get one. Some background on the process, history being made in this moment. In 2020, the Article 2 Study Commission was charged by the Unitarian Universalist Association Board to review our 7 principles and 6 sources, last revised in 1985. It has been a while. Article 2, which I'll refer to a bunch during this sermon, Article 2 is the section in the UUA bylaws where the principles and sources are articulated. It's a very institutional way to refer to the heart of our faith. After more than 2 decades of study, meetings, focus groups, surveys, debates, listening sessions, and more, the Article 2 Study Commission released its full report last spring. Included in the report was a recommendation to update the 7 principles with 7 values, or rather 6 values: equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, justice, and interdependence, all centered on the core value of love. You can see a visual representation of them on the cover of your order of service. The print's a little small, so you might not be able to read them all, but it's also included on a PDF, so you can look at it later, or for those who are online in the weekly email, PDF in the weekly email. This past June, delegates to our annual denominational conference, General Assembly, voted to approve a year of study of the proposed new 7 values. After this year of study, delegates at next summer's General Assembly will vote on whether to approve the new revised Article 2 and launch a new narrative for Unitarian Universalism. And so throughout this worship year, we'll be talking about and thinking about these proposed 7 values and how they might inspire our spiritual journeys as individuals and as a congregation. This is our first month engaging with the Article 2 Study Commission report in this way, and we are starting with generosity. Here's how the proposed Article 2 revision describes the spiritual and religious value, also on the cover of your order of service. This is directly from the Article 2 report. Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Why start with generosity this year as our first conversation about this Article 2 possible revision? Buddhist teachings have much to say here. In Buddhism, dana, or generosity, is the voluntary giving of wisdom, energy, or materials to others. Generosity is regarded as one of the most important Buddhist virtues and is the first step on the path to enlightenment. Buddhist teacher Ratthenosa explains, there is an image which you often encounter in Buddhism, the image of the lotus. It is said that after the Buddha's enlightenment experience, he had a vision of the world as being like a lotus lake with lotuses in all stages of growth, some still beneath the water, some just little buds appearing above the water, some half open, and some completely out of the water and fully open. In other words, he saw that all living beings are at different stages of development, just like the lotuses. Many of us are like little lotus buds, peeping our heads out of the water, but still closed up within ourselves, concerned with ourselves, protective of ourselves, looking into ourselves. This is a necessary stage of growth, but we need to move more and more and more towards being open flowers, looking outwards, regarding others as well as ourselves. This stage of the partially opened lotus flower is akin to the point where we experience feelings of wanting to give, the feelings of wanting to give, which indicate that we are beginning to tread the spiritual path. Dana, or generosity, has to be there right at the beginning of the spiritual life. Generosity has to be there right at the beginning, or we do not blossom. Buddhist author and teacher Sharon Salzberg expands on this. The cultivation of generosity is the beginning of spiritual awakening. Generosity has tremendous force because it arises from an inner quality of letting go. Being able to let go, to give up, to renounce, and to give generously all spring from the same source. And when we practice generosity, we open up these qualities within ourselves. Letting go gives us profound freedom and many loving ways to express that freedom. Generosity is the beginning of the path. When the Buddha taught, he always began with generosity. Salzberg goes on to talk about a Thai forest master who was puzzled that Western Buddhism starts with meditation and then moves to morality and then to generosity. We here have it wrong. In Asia, he said, the teachings proceed first from generosity, then to morality, and then to meditation or insight. Salzberg explains. The Buddha said that a true spiritual life is not possible without a generous heart. The path begins there because of the joy that arises from a generous heart. Pure, unhindered delight flows freely when we practice generosity. We experience joy in forming the intention to give, in the actual act of giving, and in recollecting the fact that we have given. There is a joy that arises when generosity is at the foundation of our spirituality and maybe at the foundation of our denomination. Contrast this to modern culture in the United States. We are taught not to find joy in giving, but in having. This is a culture where consumerism reigns, where a scarcity mindset prevails, and the market economy dictates our interactions. I give you $5 and get something in return, and our relationship is over before it even begins. Our worth is determined by how much we own. The more money we hoard, the more status and safety we have. The earth is commodified. People are a means to an end. We try to fill our needs with more and more stuff. Our culture preaches a religion of pleonexia, a never-ending cycle of wanting and desiring. At UUFN, however, at our best, our interactions are not transactional, they are relational. We're trying to do something countercultural here, not pay for service, but invest for transformation. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Earlier in the service, Ellen poetically and insightfully talked about what a posture of generosity might look and feel like for each of us. If you would like to engage with this theme more deeply this month, the Soul Matters packet on generosity is posted on our website. It includes pages of resources and questions and quotes and spiritual practices to experience this theme, not just think about it. Scroll down for the link on the homepage. What might this engagement with generosity look like for us as a congregation? The 3 calls to action of the proposed Article 2 language about generosity are: we covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. How similar those are to that Buddhist teaching of dana, the voluntary giving of wisdom, energy, and materials to others. Let's talk about each of these briefly. First, we covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith. We are called to be a people of generous faith, faith in ourselves, faith in each other, faith in what we create together. We are called to default to faith, not to fear. And maybe this call to action in Article 2 also means we're a bit more evangelical about Unitarian Universalism, this faith that saves lives and heals hearts and brings joy and justice to this world. Obviously, not evangelical to obnoxiously try to convert people. Please don't do that. But so no one ever has to say ever again, I wish I knew a place like this existed 20 years ago. My life would be so different. Being evangelical about our faith is a test of how transformational we believe it is. Why would we keep it a secret if we think it can help the world? Second, we covenant to freely and compassionately share our presence. I think Ellen talked so much about this covenant, to freely and compassionately share our presence. At its best, volunteering at church isn't just putting in the hours. We offer our presence here as the gift it is, and that means others are present to us as well. As Simone Weil said, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Bell Hooks offers this: a generous heart is always open, always ready to receive our going and coming. In the midst of such love, we need never fear abandonment. This is the most precious gift true love offers, the experience of knowing we belong. We greet one another with a generous heart and know we each belong. This is how a generosity of presence connects us in this lonely world. Third, we covenant to freely and compassionately share our resources, or in Buddhist dana, share our material. Well, you knew it was coming. I can't get through a sermon about generosity without talking about money. Of course, there is more to resources than money, but right now I'm going to talk a little bit about money. Keep that generosity of presence alive here and stick with me. There is a joke that you can talk about anything except money from the pulpit. I know money is a source of comfort and power in this world, and I know it is also a source of shame that we do not talk about often enough. Our relationship with money is complicated. Financial issues are spiritual issues. We feel embarrassed if we have too much, embarrassed if we have too little, judgmental about someone who is in debt, even or maybe especially if that person is us. Worried we might give too much away, worried we're not giving enough away. Money is complicated. A colleague of mine was talking about how money relates to this month's theme and was talking very abstractly in beautiful poetic language, and then paused and exclaimed, I just realized I'm not a very generous person. What's that about? I loved the clarity there, the confession that though they wish it weren't so, they were not living this very basic value. She went on to reflect on how this attitude towards money was inherited from her family. There was always a fear there wouldn't be enough, that the crops would be destroyed, the summer too dry, the winter too long. She realized that just like generational wealth is inherited, generational fear of scarcity is too. And the world of self-reliance is indeed scary. She was a lotus flower closed in on herself, fear holding her back from sharing her full, brilliant beauty. Recognizing this opened her to a deeper understanding of generosity. I wonder, who taught you about money? What lessons did you learn? How are they still playing out in your life? And who taught you about generosity? I believe if we can get past the scarcity mindset of self-reliance, that there is an abundance of faith, of presence, and of resources, including money, in this community. Adrienne Marie Brown asks, do you understand that your quality of life and your survival are tied to how authentic and generous the connections are between you and the people and place you live in and with? Do you understand that your quality of life and your survival are tied to how authentic and generous the connections are between you and the people and place you live with and in? The quality of our lives, our day-to-day lives, is tied to how generous the connections are between us. If we hold back, the whole web suffers. Don't hold back. Again, the words of Parker Palmer. In the human world, abundance does not happen automatically. It is created when we have the sense to choose community, to come together to celebrate and share our common store. Whether the scarce resource is money or love or power, the true law of life is that we generate more of whatever seems scarce by trusting its supply and passing it around. Authentic abundance is not found in secured stockpiles of food or cash or influence or affection, but in belonging to a community where we can give those goods to others who need them and receive them from others when we ourselves are in need. Community doesn't just create abundance. Community is abundance. Generosity generates. As Unitarian Universalists, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. What we call giving, the world knows as creation. Together, we weave this magnificent tapestry, a world in which all may thrive. May it be so. Our closing hymn is one we have not sung much before, and so we are going to practice being generous of spirit as we sing it and learn it. Please rise and body your spirit for our closing hymn, number 404, What Gift Can We Bring? That sounded great. Thanks. You may be seated for our closing benediction. This is Generosity Benediction by Reverend Tess Baumberger. O Spirit that calls us from the enclosures of the familiar into the savannas of the unknown, unknowable, help us remember that ours are not the only hands, that we only have to expand our reach in order to touch others who share with us this journey, this great undertaking. O vast love that lures us from the strictures of selfishness into the vast terrain of generous living. Return us to refresh ourselves from this deep well, to rest in this oasis whenever we are weary or disheartened, until we can resume with joy the abundance of our work. May it be so, and amen. We join together in the words for the extinguishing of our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise, embody your spirit, and with your hands over your heart, holding the hand of those next to you, or whatever posture is most comfortable for you, we sing words of blessing one to another. Go in peace.